And with that, we come to WrestleMania 27 in 2011. So Dave, The Rock sort of returns to the fray at this show as a guest host of WrestleMania and plays a role in the John Cena Miz WWE title match main event. Rock is back after all of this smashing Hollywood success. Why? Why does he come back to the WWE after succeeding so much in Hollywood?
He always wanted. I mean, okay, there was a period when for a couple of years, and you know what? It probably wasn't even that many years, but there was the end of 2004 was when his contract was up, right? It was 2004 Mania? Yeah. Okay. So end of 2004, they don't renew his contract. It's not a very pleasant break, and it shouldn't, and there's no reason it should have gone like that. You know, but him and Vince make up. But and he also has a management team that stays far away from wrestling. You're not The Rock, you're Dwayne Johnson, you know, and they're advising him of all this. Stay, you know, I don't think, you know, broaden your horizons. And he, you know, a lot of it was his doing. You know, he wanted to broaden his horizons as an actor as opposed to doing the action movies that he was first typecast for when they first brought him into Hollywood. And I think that the strategy probably in the long run was successful for him. After a while, he likes wrestling. He wanted to come back. And now, did I, you know, expect him back at that WrestleMania or anything? Yeah. I mean, I always knew he was going to come back at some point, but I didn't know that it would be. I thought it would be like, you know, your guest appearance on a Raw show on a night where maybe, you know, maybe they were going against something really tough on television, and you know what I mean, or going. You know what I always thought actually was that there would be a Monday night where Spike TV was going to put a big time UFC show.
Yeah.
This never happened. Well, I mean, Spike did put a UFC show once against Raw.
October 2005, yeah.
Right, where Vince tried to steal Mike Goldberg.
Right.
But I now when that happened, you know, then I thought for sure, and I don't know that they didn't call him. I thought for sure they were going to call him and have him do that Raw. Mm-hmm. But it didn't happen. And you know, but I you know, he always would say that, you know, he wanted to come back and make an impact. That was his thing. I want to come back and make an impact. But also, it was always clear that he would never do another match. So I never thought he would do a match at that time. So he comes back and, you know, and again, it's not like he's doing a match, but he does basically does the feud with Cena. And I'm watching, well, the referee's as close as we're going to get. I didn't really think we were going to get a match out of it, which we, of course, got the next year. But, you know, the Cena thing was turning the shoot into a work. And I thought it was very, you know, the first year I thought it was really well done. The second year I thought it was very well done. The third year, you know, it wasn't as good as the first two, but I can't say it was a flop or anything. It was still very successful.
And Dave, the shoot into a work thing is that Cena was doing interviews calling Rock out for going Hollywood, basically.
And not coming back. And saying that he loves wrestling and that he's a phony because he doesn't really love wrestling, because if he loved wrestling, he would come back and help us because, you know, and he would endorse us and he'd be with us, and he doesn't do that. And Dwayne Johnson was very unhappy about that when it first happened. At some point, I think, you know, being a businessman, he probably came to the conclusion that, well, you know, I'm unhappy, but it's money and it's John Cena and he's the top guy. And if I'm going to come back, you know, I've got a match. I got a match I can come back with that people are going to buy at a certain level, and it's with the top guy in the company, and it's the right match, and it all, you know, it was the right thing to do. So I think that's what it was. And he went against a guy head to head in promos who was going to hang with him, you know, who he wasn't going to be able to bury. And John absolutely hung with him on those promos. I mean, I think that's some of the best stuff that John Cena's ever done. Was doing this. The first one, I mean, the first year, my God, people hated John Cena. They wanted to see The Rock kill the guy. You know, and he did the promo. Was it the one in Boston? Was that the first year or the second year?
Yeah, the one in Boston was the first year, where Rock throws everything into the Boston Common.
Oh my God!
Into the Boston Harbor. Pardon me.
In the Boston Harbor, right? I'm watching that and I'm going like, you know, that was the problem that year. Was he came back and he did that promo and he did one in Cleveland and I mean, I remember these things and it's just like, oh my God. It's like when he was with Austin and some of those, and Mick Foley, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, you know, he was maybe the best promo of all, and you know, but now it's like he's in a different league. These guys aren't even in the same playing field as him anymore. When he was active, whether he was the best promo or the second best promo in the business at the time, there were guys that could hang with him, and there were guys on his playing field, and he was just one of the top 2 stars. This time he comes back, and it's like, even, you know, he's just at a different level from everyone. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was just like every week, it's just like it almost like exposed the roster as being pretenders in a lot of ways.
Yeah. But expose them as coming up in a system where they're that much more tightly controlled as far as what they say and scripted.
Yeah, but I mean, he was scripted as much as any of them.
Yeah, that's true.
He was, you know, but you know, but at this point, you know, he's an actor who's used to being with a script, and he's a very incredibly charismatic guy, and he's got the value of being not only a real life star in the real world, you know, outside of wrestling, but also is not like a, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger coming in, who doesn't have the credit. He's got the credibility of the wrestling fans because he was an all-time great wrestler before he left. So he's got it all going. And, so he came back as referee, and, you know, I mean, if you take Rock out of that year's WrestleMania, you know, I thought before Rock came back, I was thinking, you know, when it was Cena and Miz, I was thinking like, this is going to be the year. You know what
Absolutely.
I mean? This is going to be the year. You know, the one before didn't do so well. You know, it didn't do so well. And this year, this is the, you know, not to say the end of WrestleMania, but this is the decline of WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. And then The Rock comes in, and it's, you know, it's gigantic.
Now, the match he props up, as you said, is The Miz versus John Cena. This may leave fans scratching their heads who might not have been following the product very closely, because suddenly The Miz is a main event player, and they're pushing him as a killer heel. He's laying people out. He's cutting serious promos. They're building the show around him. Talk about the elevation of The Miz. Why the sudden faith in him?
You know what's funny is when this whole thing was built up, while I didn't see The Miz as the main event guy at WrestleMania, and I don't think he really was. I always felt that the main event was John Cena against The Rock, and The Miz was just the guy in the ring because The Rock wasn't going to do a wrestling match. That's how I viewed that WrestleMania. Miz was really good. I mean, Miz's promos, I mean, you know, he cut that promo about I'm not the afterthought or whatever it was that he said. I remember watching Miz's promos going like, man, this guy's really good. It's amazing to me to see how far he's fallen.
Oh, yeah. It was amazing to see how much he rose, considering how seriously they didn't take him in the beginning, and then the precipitous drop-off afterwards. He walks through that balloon setup at this WrestleMania that spells M-I-Z after they did that pump-up video to Nas. He comes out and bursts through the awesome balloons, it said, actually. It was awesome. You felt like he was a player.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm not necessarily the top guy in the company and not at John Cena's level, but as a main eventer, absolutely. Great promo guy. I mean, whatever happened to his promos? I mean, it's so weird when they did that interview where they buried him, when Stephanie McMahon was talking about how you peaked too soon. And it's just like, this is really weird because it's like, what did happen to him? I mean, I think that you gave up on him, and then he lost his confidence, and then he just became perceived by everyone as a mid-card guy, and now he's just this mid-card comedy act. I don't know what it was, but he was strong. He was strong. I know people will look, you know, it's funny, people will probably look back and go, what the hell were they thinking? Why didn't they put CM Punk in that situation? And I'm not saying Punk would have been, you know, maybe wouldn't have been better, because Punk's a great promo and better promo than The Miz. And maybe, but at the time, I'm not, you know, it's not that Miz didn't belong there. I mean, he was, I remember watching his stuff and going like, God, this guy's really got it. And boy, he doesn't now.
I think they were surprised, Dave, when they had him win the championship, I believe after cashing in Money in the Bank. Yeah, he teased that for a while. He cashed in, he wins the title, and suddenly talk shows like your Jimmy Kimmels of the world are interested in him because they remembered him from Real World, and they were like, oh, this guy actually has some Q score out there. People remember Mike Mizanin from the Real World.
I think that you know, WWE is always like really into that stuff. And I think that when he got so much publicity, it's like, wow, we've got, you know, nobody else would have gotten that publicity. So I think that helped a lot. And also the fact that Miz on talk shows, he's very good. I mean, it's like, he's got a lot of personality. He's kind of like I don't enjoy watching him because it's like, I always consider, there's a lot of guys, and it's the right thing to do if you're one of the guys, because you don't get heat for it and they all like you for it. But me watching it, makes me kind of gag when you have the, what I call him, the puppet.
He's a mouthpiece.
You know what I mean?
He's talking. He's using all their focus group catchphrases.
Yeah, he says everything you're supposed to say.
WWE Universe, the rest.
Yeah. And I would rather hear, somebody like Punk who says everything that when Punk talks, I believe it's like what he really thinks, and when it's not, he's so convincing that he fools me. I think that with Miz, it's like I don't believe a word he's saying. He's like a pre-programmed, wind me up, and I say exactly what you want me to say. Mm-hmm. But they love that, and I remember seeing him on talk shows. As far as ad-libbing and as far as being a good guy on the show, he was really good. And I know guys resent it. And then also the other part is that he, and maybe that's from the Hollywood background, maybe just because he likes to be a hard worker, but he was, he didn't say no. He didn't do, like if Miz was in the main event on Raw and they go, you need to be in the next city where we got SmackDown, and start going to the radio shows at 5 a.m. after you've driven all night. It's like, oh, can't you give me more sleep? I'm only at 2 hours. It's like, oh no, I'm ready. And he would be great on every show. Yep. There was never a whining part of it. So they really liked that about him too. But there was a point, and I don't know what it was, where Vince lost confidence in him. And you know how when Vince loses confidence in you, you're pretty much cooked. And he just did.
And he was on a track as an announcer until this Mizdow thing for a while. It's like they even were cycling him out of being a wrestler. And
That's right. That's right.
Pretty amazing when you go back and look at this show, how quickly it's one of the most precipitous drops in WWE history, I think, in terms of dramatic. You can't get higher than he got. And at a certain point, he fell off the face of the earth. It was amazing.
But I mean, look at the age too. What's Miz? 33-ish?
Yeah, early 30s.
Yeah, I mean, but when they lost confidence in him, he was 31. And here's the other one. It's like not only is he early 30s, but it's not like how some guys in their early 30s look old because the road wears.
He looked 20s.
Yeah, he still got a baby face and and all that. I mean, I think that who knows what it was. I mean,
did you get heat from Marion Maurice? Let's be honest.
I thought that he was being phased out before that. So I was being
facetious, but those sometimes, I've known people who have. That's why I took you seriously. Yeah.
I know guys that have, married the wrong girl because they think that she's too good for them. And
punching above your weight, not going to happen.
Right. And on the flip side, I've seen, and this has actually happened more, where you've got a valet, and the valet dates main event valet girl dates a prelim guy, and they phase her out because it's like, what does it matter? Who knows? No one knows. Yeah. And they, it's a strange world.
Also on this show, speaking of strange worlds, is the WrestleMania debut of Daniel Bryan. It's in a prelim match. It ends up being a lumberjack match for the U.S. title with Sheamus. It's over in 4 minutes, 20 seconds. Sheamus beats him. And, he had been, Daniel Bryan that is, fired in 2010 over an interesting angle on a conclusion of Raw where he, at least in the WWE's eyes, went a bit too far in getting physical with ring announcer Justin Roberts and sort of pantomimed as if he was, noosing him with his own tie in a big beatdown angle as he was part of a big invading heel faction called Nexus. Talk a little bit about Daniel Bryan's kind of hiccup there where they let him go and all of a sudden he returned to the Indies after it looked like he was embarking on a WWE campaign.
Yeah, it actually was good for him in the long run because I don't know that they had confidence in him. They certainly did. In NXT, they did everything they could to make sure he didn't win because they were afraid the people would all vote for him, which they would have. And I think NXT was their vehicle for Wade Barrett, who was their handpicked guy, and wasn't the worst handpicked guy. They picked worse, but that was the mentality. And they fired him, and I mean it's such a funny story because when they fired him, they they expected, my life's over, and it's like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah. Went and found work.
It's like, well, no, it was the funny. So Johnny, I think John Laurinaitis was the one who fired him, And so, and he's like, okay, cool, that's fine. Like that. He goes, well, aren't you sad? And he goes, well, the last 2 years I made less money than I made the previous 5. And now that I've been on your TV, I'm going to be able to make more money on the indies than I did then. I'm going to have my best year now.
You're going to want me worse than ever in 6 months.
Well, he didn't say that. He just thought, that's okay. I'll go to New Japan Pro Wrestling. I mean, and this is the funniest part of the whole thing is, if that would have happened, he would have gotten into New Japan Pro Wrestling. And he would be in this like freaking AJ Styles, Tanahashi, Nakamura. He'd be in that mix right now.
Yep. Actually.
And I mean, if they didn't bring him back, but if he had like gotten established, like say AJ Styles, I think that if they would have tried to, again, they called him back 2 months later. If he would have made the deal, gone there, been there for like months, and been pushed, and he would have gotten over at that level because he was such a good wrestler. If he would have gotten in there as they were on their ascent, and it was a little early. I mean, it was 1 year early. Before the big, they really started turning things around. But I mean, I'm thinking like if this had happened, because I was thinking this when I was watching, what was it? When on the New Japan Tokyo Dome show, right? So they, him and Fujiwara have the same ring entrance music.
Right.
So they're doing the Rumble, and they play the music, and it's like, oh, God, Fujiwara's coming, okay? But I'm joking around with people on Twitter and going like, Daniel Bryan's here, like that. And so people are like, that heard that we're watching that show, we're going like, oh, my God, Daniel Bryan's on the thing. And then I started thinking, you know what? If he would have signed that contract for 1 year and he was negotiating it and signed it before they called him back and he was there, if he'd been there for a year, he'd have never come back because he'd have made more money there than here plus his indies, and he would have loved it because there would have been no politics or anything like that. And could you imagine, like with the talent that they have now, I mean, all these great matches that he had with Triple H and everyone, right? He'd be working with guys twice as good. I don't say twice as good. That's unfair. 1.5 times as good.
I get your point.
He'd be having the greatest matches in the world right now. Oh my God.
Now here he is, one of the biggest stars of the business, and to think of these kind of silly hiccups and, interruptions and, trying to point the fans away from him for whatever reason, and then he comes back and just lights the business on fire. So it's, or at least, lights his own prospects on fire. So it's interesting to look back when he was being jobbed out and being fired and in an afterthought. Also at this WrestleMania, Dave, it's The Undertaker versus Triple H in a match that they frame up as the end of an era match. Undertaker beats him in about 30 minutes. And I find that this match is actually quite divisive among fans in terms of how good it is or how good it isn't, if there's too much smoke screens in the match. And I remember you gave it really high marks. And I enjoyed the match quite a bit because the streak thing was red hot for this match, and people thought there was actually a chance Triple H would take the streak. But it is a match filled with just weapon shot after weapon shot and guys kicking out of each other's finishers. Where do you fall? Do you like this match? Do you remember liking it?
I love the match. I love both of the Triple H matches with Undertaker. I think the only negative, and this is not even a negative, is they were just slightly not as good as the Shawn matches, but what's going to be, right? It's like I couldn't say, I'm not a fan of the sledgehammer. Yeah, I know. I mean, I've had guys go, you know what? It's like it was just take a move, slow down, don't do anything, sell, do a finish move, kick out, sell. Is it like it wasn't that difficult of a match? I've had guys tell me, and I know it really wasn't. But you know what? It's like if it works on the stage on the day, that's my view, and it very clearly worked both times. And the story, I'm watching this thing, and I know who's going to win this match. And there were points where I'm going like, oh my God, they
changed their mind.
He's going to lose. I thought he was going to lose more than I thought in the Lesnar match. Yep. I never got that feeling in the Lesnar match until the absolute finish. But in this match, there were like 3 or 4 spots. And I mean, the one spot where he goes in there, and I don't remember if it's in this match or the second one, where he goes in there and he gets the finish. Was the go-go plot of the finish of the first or the second one?
That was this one, submission, yeah.
Okay. I thought that finish was fantastic because he was going to kill him. He was going to kill the sledgehammer, with the sledgehammer, and he gets the go-go. It's like there's no way you've gone too far this time. He's going to really win. I thought that the I thought that both those matches were great.
This actually is an interesting show for one Edge. In the opening show of the pay-per-view, he defends the World Championship against Alberto Del Rio, the Royal Rumble winner that year, and beats him in 11 minutes to retain the championship. This show, this WrestleMania, it took place on April 3rd of 2011, and on April 11th on Raw, Edge walks into the ring and retires. Were you surprised?
I was surprised at both because, number one, I was positive Alberto Del Rio was winning the championship, and that was the original plan. I don't know if they switched plans with the idea that they wanted him to retire as champion. That's certainly not the way that they would usually do business. So I don't really know the answer as far as why Alberto Del Rio didn't win. And yeah, I didn't know he was hurt until what it was the Monday. I think that I kind of heard he was hurt. But even then, it wasn't like it was career ending. It was like, oh, he's hurt. But then he comes in and does that interview. And, and I thought it was the typical interview like the Daniel Bryan one the other week, where it's just like, oh, the doctor says this, but no, I'm still going to wrestle. And it's like all of a sudden when it was over, it's like, I'm done.
That's it.
Yeah, I'm done. So great interview.
And to that Alberto Del Rio point, he'd been the winner of the Royal Rumble and, loses in the opener of WrestleMania. It seems like over the years, the Rumble win has been very much devalued. It's rare. It's increasingly rare for the winner of the Rumble to actually be the show closer, the headliner. Why do you think that's been? That there's kind of been a slow erosion of the tried and true formula that who wins the Rumble closes the show at Mania, and they end up using the Rumble to prop up guys further down the card.
I think it's something that they didn't want to do. I think it just happened. Because I think that like this year they, I from all accounts they want the winner of the Rumble to be the star of WrestleMania and to close the show. It was just I think that in those years, they didn't have I think that when Del Rio won, I think the idea was to anoint Del Rio, and why they didn't I don't know, but he was the one that they shot the rocket on, so to speak. They were really high on making him a superstar, but John Cena was the main event.